right. It looks like everybody's been let in from the waiting room. So welcome everybody to the December 9th town board meeting. This is actually 2 meetings. The first meeting will be a public hearing on the local law providing for a temporary moratorium on land use development reviews and approvals. And then the second meeting will be our town board business meeting. And just to let everyone know, so we are considering a moratorium on land use development. As you know, we enacted a moratorium last June 10th, and that moratorium, that was a 180-day moratorium that allowed the town the time to complete its update of the comprehensive plan, which had been under careful work for the last 6 years, and consider recommendations from that, from the comprehensive plan. So I'm happy to announce that the planning board has completed its update and passed that on to the town board, and they've done a wonderful job. So given the draft of the comprehensive plan that we have in hand and the recommendations, we're now proposing another separate moratorium for a period of 180 days to consider and begin developing land use guidance tools such as zoning, site plan review, and other measures that are indicated. So that's what we're considering tonight. The land use moratoria, passage of a land use moratorium by a town is a type 2 seeker action, which means that it does not require seeker review or a determination of environmental impact. It does require review by the county. It's called 239 review. And the county has reviewed the moratorium and given us that, completed their review. So with those preliminary comments, for context, I will now open the public hearing on the moratorium for anyone who wishes to speak to the board. I would ask that speakers try to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And in the new Zoom world, the way that you indicate your desire to speak is to raise your blue Zoom hand, which you can do with a button at the bottom of your participants panel. So, and the Zoom will conveniently line up hands in the order in which they were raised. So, so with that, I am going to call on Mary Malice Kobler, and John, are you co-hosting tonight?
I am not.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just take matters in my own hand and see if I can do that.
I can if you need me to, but right now I'm not
Yeah,
a
you just
co-host.
assign him.
I'll make John a co-host once I find
Okay, that'd be great.
I have to find him.
Thanks, John. So I'll let you unmute people as they're called upon then.
1 second. Okay, John, you should be ready to go.
Thank you. Mary Alice, you should be able to unmute.
Am I there? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mary Alice. Go ahead. Thank
So
you.
tonight, Jonathan Comstock and I are sharing a computer, so he would like to make a statement after me. I hope that's okay. And I just want to thank everybody that's been involved with the comprehensive plan and the new task force. And it's just amazing how our small community works together. And I really appreciate everyone that's been involved. This is what democracy looks like. It takes a while for everything and everybody, citizen involvement. And I strongly urge the board to vote tonight on a extended building moratorium so that all this hard work can get implemented. So please vote on it tonight so that there's no gap between the moratoriums. And I will stay tuned to see what becomes of this. Thank you very much.
Hi, yeah, so this is Jonathan Comstock. I'm also in favor of extending the moratorium. We've lived here for many years now, and it's been impressive to watch the process of the comprehensive plan, the labor that was put into collecting input from all over the town and then consolidated into something that actually reflected multiple views. And I think it does an excellent job of that. Since there are primary recommendations that involve substantial changes, such as some form of zoning, I think that the moratorium is really necessary in order to start implementing the comprehensive plan and its recommendations. And I think it's a very fair thing to do because it's even-handed with all interested parties. So please go forward.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, Barbara is up
Okay.
next.
Barbara Newth.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Barbara Newth. I and my husband have been a resident of the town of Caroline for over 33 years. Joined as residents of Caroline by our daughters who were born during that time. And I'm speaking in favor of the local law providing for a temporary moratorium on land use development reviews and approvals for all commercial, retail, business, and industrial land development actions for a period of 180 days. I do this in the context of having just completed service on the Town of Caroline Land Use and Development, Economic Development Task Force, which, to provide a little bit of context to the board, has done an amazing, in my opinion, amount of work, 15 weekly meetings, and identified a number of recommendations for the town board's careful consideration that include both considering zoning for the town of Caroline and considering quite a number of revisions or amendments to the site plan review law for the town of Caroline, and include incorporating the existing site development guidelines as standards within the site plan review law for the town of Caroline. So these are substantive recommendations that build on and complement the comprehensive plan for the town of Caroline, which I understand will have a public hearing again later this week. Just to indicate that the comprehensive plan process has involved quite a lot of public input. The Land Use and Economic Development Task Force invited people to attend those meetings. We convened both in the 15 full task force meetings that I mentioned, as well as quite a number of subcommittees. There were 3 subcommittees of the task force addressing different elements. There were consultations with other town documents. There were consultations with other state documents and state experts on land use and economic development. And so the recommendations that the task force has provided, I think, provide a great blueprint for the town board to be considering in terms of next steps for the future of Caroline to keep in sync with the values and interests of the comprehensive plan, but that will take time. And so having a moratorium extended for another 180 days will give the town board the ability to thoughtfully consider and potentially implement the recommendations and the actions that are coming out of both the comprehensive plan effort, which was a citizen-driven effort, as well as the task force effort, which was a citizen-driven effort. So I commend the town board for putting this action up to a public hearing now. And I strongly encourage the town board to pass the proposed local law. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And I do want to chime in here. Yeah, I was actually, and I think that was a really great encapsulation of the work of the task force. So I appreciate that. And I was remiss in not mentioning that tremendous effort that just concluded with recommendations to the town board. And so thank you. Next, Alyssa Abbott.
Thank you so much for letting me make some comments this evening. I am bowled over by what Barbara had to say about what the task force has done, and I am amazed that they were able to accomplish so much in such a short time. I think as drafted, the moratorium is impressively specific about the need to address detailed sections of the comprehensive plan that will need to be backed up by legislative actions to actually realize its goals. I think the task force did a meticulous job of singling out all aspects of the comprehensive plan that relate to land use while pointing out that much more work needs to be done. This is exactly why the town needs the 180 days to dig down into the details and explore all of the ramifications in order to come up with a sensible, fair form of zoning for our beloved town. Although the proposed moratorium never actually states that climate change is a factor to be taken into consideration when contemplating zoning, certainly the attention given in the draft moratorium to environmental issues, population growth, and I can imagine the possibility that our town could draw more people fleeing from uninhabitable areas as the climate crisis evolves, the need to preserve good farmland to feed a growing local population, and other such local concerns covered in the plan indicates the need for a careful examination of town-wide zoning. I think we owe it to the residents of Caroline to use the best tools available to plan for managing the many challenges the climate crisis has in store for us. Our land and how we use it is hugely important in this big picture. I think previous objections to zoning are no longer relevant today. The time for zoning has come. This moratorium would give the town the best chance to do it right. And I urge the town board to act swiftly to approve the moratorium. And I agree with others that it would be perfect if you could do that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Ellen
Ellen
is
Harrison.
next.
Is next. Yeah, great. Thanks, John.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ellen. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you all. I am speaking in favor of the moratorium. I was a member of the task force that Barbara Newth so ably summarized. And one of the things I have to say is I was a little dubious about being on this group, and it was a wonderful experience. Tim did a great job of leading us. We had professional help, which was important. And what I thought was really quite remarkable was the collegiality and mutual respect that people, even though we had some different points of view, it was really a great experience. I'm so glad I did it. And as Barb said, we worked very hard. It was kind of a good thing it was COVID times. We didn't have a lot else going on. And we did make a series of recommendations that I think maybe were delivered to the town board tonight. I'm not sure exactly when. But what we delivered were recommendations. And so what we have then is a work, hopefully, in progress. And there is a definite need for time to continue to work on and implement some of those recommendations. So I think it's really, in fairness to those of us who worked so hard, we need to have more time for the town to actually embark on the suggestions that we made. I also want to speak as a member of the Caroline Review Board. So as you mostly know, there is a board that is reviews site plans that come under a certain thresholds would come before and have to abide by a site plan review law. And there's a subdivision law and subdivisions that fall under those requirements, guidelines, come before the review board. And serving on the review board has been interesting and somewhat frustrating because it's pretty clear that some of the actions that I think some of us would like to take and that some of the citizenry has expressed an interest in are things we can't do under the current law. And the task force made recommendations, as Barb Newth said, to amend the site plan law. And that will be important. There's some important steps in there that would help me as a member of the review board know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing in certain cases. And then it also suggests that it would be better to do it under a zoning ordinance. And I can see where a zoning ordinance would enable the town to provide some of the guidance that I think that has been expressed to us by citizenry and which some of us on the review board feel is necessary. So it'll be great if we can work on this in the next 6 months and I can be on the review board with a better sense of what I'm able to do and can do. Thank you.
Great. Catherine is up next.
Hi, I don't think I'm going to be adding anything new, I'm afraid, which is good because I really just agree with everything that has already been expressed really very beautifully, I think, from all of you who've already spoken. And my particular comment was just to express appreciation for whoever it was who drafted the language of the moratorium, the proposed law. I mean, the way that you pulled out specifics from the comprehensive plan as someone who was involved in some of that very language, it felt gratifying that it was actually being, paid attention to. And it feels like we actually have some agency with all of the work that we've done. And so I just want to express gratitude there. And I do agree, with everything that's already been said in terms of where we're moving, and clearly there's been a lot of discussion and that discussion takes time. And so I just want to add my support for more time to do everything that we need to do and support all the work that, the comprehensive plan team as well as you all on the task force have done. So thanks so much for everything everyone's done.
Thank you, Catherine. Yep.
Bill is up next.
Okay, good evening. So I also am going to speak in favor of extending the moratorium, in the work. So, most of you know me, I am currently the chair of the planning board, and so I've been immersed in the comprehensive plan for the last couple of years. And then I also served on the recently mentioned task force. I have to say I was more a dilettante on that committee, and my hat's off to many of the other people that worked incredibly long hours, but I at least was glad to cheer them on. So I thought that was great work. I think that where that has brought us to, what became clear to me in all the work on the comprehensive plan and on that task force, is that there are goals the community has set for itself, a vision of what Caroline wants to be. And this is what the town feels is important for what the town should be. And we need stronger tools to attain that vision. As Ellen just mentioned, it's been clear that just what we have up to now is just not adequate to the task. And that's what's become increasingly clear to me over the last couple of years. And so with the work, particularly of the task force, we are sort of poised to really look at carefully and implement a few sets of tools that might work well together to enable the community to be what it wants to be. And so I fully support putting the moratorium in place, because we are, again, poised at that moment where with some more time, those tools can be developed and therefore help the community. So thank you, and I appreciate that you're thinking of extending the moratorium, and I also encourage you to vote on it tonight.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Renee is up next.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to see everyone. I fully support the extension of the 180-day moratorium, like everyone else who's spoken this evening. I feel that a careful and thoughtful process will give our board time to consider the details of the comprehensive plan, but also the task force recommendations. And I want to thank both of those groups for really being an amazing group, two amazing processes. Or two groups that have gone through amazing processes, I should say. I want to say that I feel it's imperative that our town consider legislative ways to nurture our community and our landscape and our water. I support wholeheartedly careful zoning, and I know that many of you have heard me speak on many occasions over the last 10 years that I felt that zoning was really the only way we could ensure our future. For 38 years, I've had the privilege of living in our town, and like Barb and so many of you, it was our children and the birth of our children that really introduced us to so many of you, and also the Caroline School. I have witnessed in the past former citizens of our town resisting any kind of planning or zoning, but I think in 2020, the time has come to realize that this is really the only essential way, an absolute way to really preserve life as we've really been able to enjoy it these last years. So I know I have heard, maybe one or two people resisting still the notion of zoning, and I really believe that, we need to have a conversation, and I think that extra 180 days will allow us all to come together and really air out the pros and the cons. But I am totally confident and encouraged that really this is the only option we have. So anyway, thanks so much.
Thank you, Renee.
Emily is next.
Yeah, I can keep this really short and sweet. I agree with everybody who's spoken ahead of me. I can't think of anything I don't agree with. I'm really impressed with the amazing work that people have put into this. I'm really hopeful about our community coming together and making a, really great execution of these great ideas in the comprehensive plan. And I support the moratorium, and I hope you pass it tonight. That's all.
Thank you, Emily.
That's everybody who had their hand up, Mark.
Okay, I guess I'll make another call for blue Zoom
There's-
hand.
Hang on, Mark. There's one more person, Chet Feldman, that can't raise his hand that would like to comment.
Okay, thanks, Jesse.
Yep.
Mark,
Yes?
can you hear me? Well, this
Yes,
is
I hear
Tony.
you.
I'm in line, so don't forget me. I don't have, I'm just on my phone, so
Okay.
I will. How do I shut this thing off so I can wait till my turn?
I think you should go right ahead.
It's your turn now, actually. I think you're
Okay.
good.
Okay. Well, I'm not entirely against a moratorium. I'd like to better understand what it is that moratorium is a blocking mechanism, and it would imply that you're blocking something, or that you see something coming within the next 180 days that you're concerned about that would not agree with our comprehensive plan or the new stuff that they put in it. And I do agree with the comprehensive plan in that we like rural, we like farming. So, you know, I agree with that. I'd just be interested to know what it is that you think is going to happen in 180 days that you are concerned about. That being said, the farming aspect of this, I've had many conversations with Don Barber and the board about, and the planning board, as to, they asked me, you know, how do we fix this? Because the farms are gone. They're going. The last ones are going. And it's always about money. It's about profit. And, you know, how do you do that? And Don always said, we can't. You know, at our level, we can't do anything about that. So I personally, and Irene can attest to this, have had to change what I do to save the farm. And I've spent my life protecting the land from Maple Road to Speedsville, because I don't want to see the growth that all of you, I believe, are fearful of the sprawl that happens. You know, it's about the open land and my love for the farm. So and when the fracking thing happened, I told Irene that, you know, if it doesn't come, because I needed the money to retool the farm for those cows to meet the new benchmarks that they were putting on us as far as milk. So when that happened, you know, the cows left and I changed what I do, and I went to crops, so I had more control over it. And then things happen to crops, and they're not worth anything, and haven't been, other than hay is what I do now. But I have found a new avenue, and it goes along with what the town board, the board members have pushed, and that's renewables. And this is what I want to speak to you, the board, personally about. And I talked to Cal about, you know, having a time set up to talk to you about this project, because if you go ahead with this moratorium, you're probably going to kill it. And this solar farm thing, I don't know what the hell they call it, that I've been working on for 3 years, which is what I've explained to the planning board, that farms need money, they need income. So I have to sacrifice, my plan is to sacrifice some acreage with the solar to keep the farm going. And because there's not enough acres that I would sacrifice on my land, I offered 40 acres, and my neighbors, and they went to my neighbors and they've added to it to create a large enough array that is viable and can be done. And the contracts are signed. They just need to come to you to talk to you and see whether they can actually do it or not. They still don't know. My point is that this is done, and I'd love to talk to you about the reasoning for this. It's not about covering the farm and killing the farm. It's about saving the farm, about creating an income stream, which happens to be renewables that everybody I've heard talk here, or at least a couple of you, are worried about climate change, global warming, and the answer has been renewables, and solar has been one that people have talked a lot about in this town and fought hard for. And I have decided to sacrifice some land to do that and use that income stream to save the farm and possibly buy some of the land around me so that I can keep doing the acreage that I do. So I would like you to consider the fact that that moratorium, the Distributed Sun is who it is, and they have voiced their concern that it will kill it because the margins are quite close. And I'd like everybody to consider the fact that that may be. And is there a way, I'm not necessarily against a moratorium. Is there a way to work this out so that you still, you know, because there are things that I see coming that I say, yeah, you need a moratorium. But this is concerning for me and this project. If you could give me some time to look into this, or if there's a variance or something that you can do, if you're agreeable to this, to be one of the things that's not blocked by it. Maybe you know nothing about it and you need to know more about it, which I'll gladly explain to you, and I can have the lawyer talk to you if that helps. Again, I'm not necessarily against this 180 days. I understand that there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of things to do. this is my concern as far as if we're worried about rural, this is my plan and this is how I do it to keep this open. I appreciate your time.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So I just will offer, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. You asked about I think you nailed the point of a moratorium, which is to preserve the status quo while a municipality updates its comprehensive plan or its zoning or land use laws. So that's, it's not targeted, it's a general freeze. So I will leave it at that and be happy to talk with you later.
So if you got my phone number. So if you could give me a call, we'll set up and I will better explain. I'd like everybody that's in this meeting, the public, to understand that this is what this is. And the reason for my neighbors, they went after my neighbors because the 40 acres that I would allow them, they wanted the whole farm. I said, no way, I can't do that. This is almost like selling the cows to me. It's very difficult, but it needs to be done. My barn needs a lot of money. Foundation's coming down. So, you know, there's a lot that I could do with it, that revenue stream. But the extra acreage, they say like we need a certain amount to make it pay for itself because there's about, I think they said they have to build up the power lines for 2 miles to do that, and there isn't enough room on there for even the 40 acres. And like I said, I've been at this for 3 years trying to work something out, and I'd like to talk to the whole board, but I'd like the people in the public to understand this too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony. And I will say, I'll also add in that we also are, right now our planning board is engaged in updating or not updating, but developing a solar siting law. So anyway, yeah.
Well, how do I you know, like when I'm done talking, how do I shut this thing so you can't hear me?
I don't know.
I mute you.
He just muted you, Tony.
Okay. John took care of you. So thanks, Tony.
Thanks.
So I think Chet Feldman had
wanted
been
to
on
speak.
deck. Yeah.
Yep.
So Chet Feldman, John.
Yep, I'm aware. Yep, Chet, are you unmuted? There you go.
Hi, can you hear me? Great. I am Chet Feldman, and I work for Distributed Sun. Basically, I'm here speaking on behalf of the development community, and you know, as Tony mentioned, we have been in discussion for an extended period. I'm seeing the general tenor of this meeting, and I understand where I am. So I will say that I support self-determination. I think that's you know, a necessity for democracy, of course. But you know, from the outsider's perspective, which I'm for, is we would appreciate, you know, timeliness and clarity. We have been looking at Caroline for some time. I had my colleague attended the June meeting before the comprehensive plan moratorium, and he delivered the same message of timeliness and clarity. And to perhaps give a little more color to that idea is 6 months from now, we hope, we think, I don't know, that the town of Caroline will have regulations in place. If that's so, then, you know, that's great. But the problem is from the outside perspective, we don't know that that is going to be in place. So we have to halt work in order to make sure that there's actually going to be, you know, a till open, a place to deliver an application that's ready for us. But in the absence of that, you know, if study continues and we continue to not have a place to present and discuss our project, we end up going into, I mean, two areas where, you know, the business side, climate side aside, the business side runs into issues in the short term is that the federal investment tax credit goes off a cliff and decreases over 50% well, down to away from the incentive levels and into 2021 where it's going to be hard to make a project work. In addition, the state has put in the program through NYSERDA to encourage smaller scale regional solar arrays, like ones that we're thinking of in the town of Caroline. And those programs that are set up, they're all set up on a competitive basis. So we're not, we are competing with other solar folks and other towns that have clear and understandable regulations where developers can get permits to do their work. They need to have a permit in hand to show to NYSERDA to get credit and compete. So we've got, a changing business area, and, one clear and present thing that always ends up impacting. I need to check the exact stats on this, but I believe our company is now responsible. We're the third largest taxpayer in Tompkins County because of our arrays in Dryden, through the pilots we pay there. So those pilots bring forth revenue for a bunch of folks, and that really does have a knock-on effect with the timeliness of the ability to capture federal credits and local state credits. So we need to be able to address a board and present a project in 2021 to really make this work. And if moratoria continue, then in short, we're in for a rockier, much more uncertain road with our interest here in Caroline. So that's my statement. I hope that is taken into consideration by the board. Thank you.
Can I just ask for clarification? So if the 6-month moratorium, if the work got done within those 6 months and the town was ready to accept application at that point, does that work for you or not?
It's possible. So the real question
doesn't?
I say it's possible, but I can't guarantee that, because the real thing we need to know is we need to know by spring break whether it's really going to line up in time, because we actually have to send consultants and get all our due diligence done that the board would actually want to see. So I mean, I can get up there and wave my hands on June 10th and say, hey, we're great, we've done projects, you should just take this sketch and approve us. But that wouldn't pass muster with anyone. So we have to have enough confidence that the law is going to be put in place such that we can get our consultants, get our engineers, get our permitting package to be clear, present, compliant with a regulation. Now, if a regulation draft is not available in, say, March, that makes it a big lift and a big challenge for us. So we would need clarity by March in order to be in the queue by June. And 180 days is not really line up with that.
And so when you say by March, as in March 1 or March 30?
Let's meet in the middle, March 15.
No, March 10.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a hard deal. We could
right
haggle
now.
this a bunch, but clarity is, I'm an engineer by trade, so I need to organize and get my data and get my inputs to my design. I also have a team who I have to work with, who I have to take this information back, and I have to talk to my buddy in finance and say, trust me, the guys and gals in Caroline are going to work it out. And I need to be able to prove that, not just have him join me on a nice Zoom call in December. So we need strong indications that a bean counter is going to say, okay, Chet, you can go spend money on your consultants to make that happen.
Thank you, Chet.
So basically a 3-month instead of a 6-month moratorium.
It's feasible.
Okay.
Thank you.
That is everybody, Mark.
Is that everybody? One more.
This Ken Miller, Mark, can you hear
Yeah, I
me?
hear you, Ken. We'll get you in. Yeah,
Mark?
go ahead.
Okay, I don't have any hand to put up, I'm sorry.
Huh,
Mind
okay.
if I
Well, we can
say
see you. Go
2
ahead.
minutes? And I'm sorry I don't have a hand to put up. I can't find it, so.
It's not a requirement.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I have a feeling with the presenter before Chet there, Mark, I think his name was.
Tony.
About saving his farm. Oh, was it Tony?
Tony.
Okay. About saving his farm. And I'm in the same situation. I'm trying to work out something that will help me improve my farm. And so I won't go into that anymore because he said quite a bit of what how I feel. I don't mind the moratorium. I think if it was short, what I mind more is someone going to zone me and say, well, you can only ever be a farm. That would bother me. And I want to say that the farmers that have, as some people say, gone out of business. No, they haven't exactly gone out of business. They've changed businesses. Cal Snow probably from dairy to crops. May have a son that goes on. And what the farmers have done in cases where they are deciding to either reduce their operation or go out of operation, they're finding farmers right now from north and south of us that may be bigger, and those farmers aren't necessarily coming here to buy the land. They're coming here to rent it, finding out how good it is. Eventually, they may buy it and continue to have it be a farm. If somebody from the town were to drive many of the roads around town, you'll find the farms that have gone out of business and haven't been there's been no one there, no farmer there to continue to keep it clean. You got to have farmers that can do that. And you'll see them easily. You'll go by what looks like could be an open field and it's all brush. So the farmers that I know right now are continuing to do a good job, and they don't need a zoning thing to tell them this is the way it has to be. In fact, if you look at the map, there isn't a lot of prime land, farmland in our area. But there are still a lot of farms that are doing well one way or another. Some of them have gone to hemp. Some of them have gone to a small niche market. We're doing good, and we're bringing in people to continue farming. They're just not going to buy the land necessarily, maybe because it's too high right now. That may change. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. So I see Ellen and Barbara have their hands raised. Again, I do want to make sure, I want to make sure that everybody who hasn't spoken has a chance to speak. And I'm worried that because Ken was under the radar and so was Chet. So, so I believe if you're struggling to find a blue Zoom hand, it's at the bottom. There's a button at the bottom of your participants panel. Yeah, if you're visible, if you just raise your hand, we'll call on you, but I'll take another call. And then if there are none others, then I would ask Ellen and Barbara for their comments.
Not seeing any other hands, Mark, I would say.
So yeah,
Ellen
go ahead.
would be next.
Thank you.
Okay. I was interested in what Tony had to say, and I can appreciate that kind of a concern for sure. And I have no idea, and I'm sure our town attorney would, if there's some way to do a partial lift of a moratorium at some point. I don't know. Clearly, a moratorium that is only half as long as the currently proposed one, 90 days, is not going to be sufficient for the actions that are recommended that the town board take. And I guess all I would want to put forward is I appreciate what Tony's concerns are. We can't lift a moratorium in half the time and get the job done. And I assume that the town attorney would help the town board determine whether one could lift a moratorium for certain kinds of development. Development of renewables would be okay or not. I also appreciate that the planning board is developing or is about to start working on a solar ordinance. And that's important because there are, while it's incredibly important to move towards renewables, it's not without its own issues, trials, tribulations that need to be considered. So thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. Just in brief response to the comments that Tony and Chet made with regard to solar development. Again, I'll speak in favor of the 100-day moratorium to allow all the recommendations to be duly considered that have been put forward by the two citizen-led committees. But I also want to note that I think the issues that they're raising in terms of renewables are critically important for the future of the town of Caroline. But I think it's important to consider the town of Caroline short-term in terms of the town of Caroline long-term. And what I mean by that is we have, presumably, all indications are, a new federal administration coming in as of January 20th, which is predicted to be very, very, very supportive of renewables. And so one can imagine that over the longer term, i.e. over the next 4 years, as opposed to the next 180 days, there will be significant federal action supportive of further renewable development. And so while I certainly appreciate and sympathize with Chet and Tony in terms of their short-term concerns for the immediate solar development projects that they're talking about, over the slightly longer term, i.e. over the next 4 years, there are certainly going to be opportunities for additional incentives for solar and renewable development that would be attractive to solar companies coming in and making, making beneficial uses of the town of Caroline land with sufficient protections given, compliance and adherence to the town of Caroline's comprehensive plan that will presumably be adopted soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Mary Alice? I think John is unmuting you now.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot to say. I was moved by Tony and Chet's comments, and so my own feedback on the comprehensive plan in the past has been, make sure that the language is right so that we can do solar development. The discussion of green space and rural character are very important, and yet they have to be in context of our current times. I think that the point of the federal incentives dropping away is very real, and it's in progress. They're lower this year than they were last year, and they'll be lower still next year. Maybe there'll be better new great incentives 4 or 5 years from now, but there's no guarantee that that's true. there's no, the people who would like to see that happen do not have control of the federal Senate right now. So it's only something that it's just a hopeful thing that Biden can implement that part of his policy. And I also think, even if there are some wonderful new incentives in 4 years, and then you can look at those and the companies can start building new ideas, that, there's another year or two of planning and stuff. I'm sympathetic to our local farmers who are struggling to make ends meet, to hold it together. And, 5 or 6, 7 years, it probably sounds like a really long time to them. So one question I had, I don't know if this is even feasible at all, but what if you did a 3-month moratorium, making it clear that you might extend it, but that at the end of that 3 months, you might have some of, you could see what you were, I'm wondering if everything has to come all at once at the end of 6 months, or whether there could be a graded process.
Well, I'll just say that 6 months was recommended as an appropriate amount of time to begin consideration of zoning. And if you'll see the language of the moratorium, there's a provision in there that should we proceed with forming a zoning commission and make good progress within that 6 months, and certainly if we could accomplish our goal in 6 months, that would be wonderful. But I think it's for that goal, it's likely that we would want to extend the 6-month moratorium. So I think for the, as others have said, for the goals that have been set out by the comprehensive plan and the task force, 6 months is not a lot of time. And it's, I think it's important to think about, I understand the short-term struggles of individuals and especially farmers, but I think to me, the perspective that I feel I need to hold is the vision for the town and the and achieving the goals of the town in a reasonable amount of time. And in that perspective, 6 months is the blink of an eye or whatever. So that's just my layperson, what I've gathered about what's required, what would be required for doing zoning.
So, Mark, I
Would
just
it-
want
would
to
it be
point
appropriate
of
to
order.
The board meeting?
Sure.
I was just going to say point of order. Are we closing the public hearing?
I think, I did
Because-
sort of
Yeah.
allow multiple speakers and do some replies. So I guess we probably should. I think that's a good point. And then carry this further in our board discussion in the business meeting later on.
Well, and I would suggest that we move and close the public hearing. I would also suggest that within the board meeting that we arrange the agenda such that we can just flow right into a discussion rather than people having to sit
Sure.
through a bunch of boring yada yada.
Yeah, that
when we
sounds
know
reasonable.
that they're here to learn about this. So I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Great, thanks,
Second.
Irene. Seconded by John. And so any further discussion? Yeah, so all in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye. So the public hearing on the 108-day moratorium is hereby closed. Thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful comments. We really appreciate it. So with that, we'll move to the the business meeting, and I will begin the business meeting by offering an opportunity for privilege of the floor for any other items that people wish to bring to the board. So, is there anyone that wishes to speak further? Oh, great. So, well, not seeing any blue Zoom hands. So we did have the interviews with we have 3 applicants for the planning board. Do we want to proceed with those interviews and then move to the discussion?
Sounds good.
Mark, can I suggest this move into discussion? Because the 3 applicants for the planning board were at the public hearing anyway and are probably interested in this. So it might make sense for the general public to move right to the discussion of the moratorium. I don't know if everyone agrees.
I agree
So,
with that.
why don't we find out from the people who were applying for the planning board if they're wanting to stay for the discussion and interview later, or should we interview them now so that they can get back to their lives? See what they want to do.
I have no life. This is fine.
Will and Michelle, are you guys? Oh, you're muted, Michelle.
Well, I'm planning on staying through the whole meeting, but you may have to call my home phone if I fall asleep. I don't know how long the rest of this is going to go, but I'm good either way.
Okay, thank you, Will. And Michelle, are you good?
Michelle's muted.
Okay, say it again, Michelle.
She's still muted.
Myself there. Yeah, I'm fine. So you didn't hear what I said the first time?
No.
Right.
No.
Right. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thanks very much for your patience. So now I will open the floor for discussion of the moratorium amongst board members.
If it's okay, I'll just mention I was going to do this as part of my committee report, but it's just contextual that the task force that was summarized by Barb and Michelle did finish its work last night. We delivered a report today to the board, which I was going to present formally publicly. It does, based on 4 months of very, very hard work, make recommendations that include the establishment of a zoning commission, which is the procedure that's required by state law to begin consideration of zoning. And this committee, also the task force, worked very, very hard revising the site plan review law and design standards to be incorporated, ideally, legally, with great strength within a zoning law. And I do think that we'll need the 180 days to thoughtfully proceed in relationship to these recommendations by the task force and by the planning board for the comprehensive plan.
Thanks, Tim. There you go.
I can speak, but this is as hard of a place as I've ever felt boxed in with in my time on the board. I wrote to Tim last night after he sent the report from the task force. I was blown away, you guys, the work that went into that. I said you guys made Margaret Mead proud. That never doubt the ability of a committed, thoughtful, dedicated citizens to change the world. And I've been incredibly moved by the comments to the board, by the work that you guys put in, as to how much you love this town and have a vision for it that you want realized. and things that you care about in this town and that I care about in this town that we want to preserve and protect. And I want to honor that and respect the work that's been done and respect the work and the time that it's going to take to move forward. And then there's the other piece. And you guys know that in my every waking hour that I'm not doing town board abstracts or some other thing, I'm working on green energy stuff and trying to find ways to, you know, something else that we all care about. And I know we do is saving the planet, is you know, and we know that I don't think that there's anybody here who doesn't recognize the tension of, you know, being able to do solar development in this community, along with being able to do all the other things that have been raised within the work of the planning board and the task force. Here's my thoughts, and I don't feel ready to vote tonight. My thoughts are this. I don't think it's realistic that we're going to get zoning done in 6 months. I think zoning is a big project. It's going to be a heavy lift in this town. I think it's a worthwhile project to do, but I am not in favor of putting any kind of development in this town on hold for the next year or more that it takes to get zoning figured out. I like to think that within 3 months, and you know, this is part of what I would want to do reality check with the committees on, can we get done some of the other things that have been recommended, the formula business restrictions, planning, the site plan law, the solar siting law, and can we get enough done to allow things to move forward? You know, it becomes hollow to say, in some ways, to say we care about preserving our farms and preserving our farmlands, and I know that you all do, but if we have farmers, one of them on our board who can I mean, you know, farming is dying and they're finding ways to renew it and keep it going and you know, maintain their barns and their buildings so that we don't have rundown, falling down barns in this town. And, you know, and then we say we support farming, we support our rural, we love our open space, and yet then when it comes a point of decision and we're not actually doing stuff, when we hear farmers that we know and care about, one of whom Ken served on the committee, another of whom serves on our own board, talking about how hard it is to make a go in farming, I want to find some middle path. I just want to find some middle path to where we can support the renewable projects, to support the farmers, and recognize, in my opinion, I'm not willing to put all development in the town on hold for, it's been already 6 months, it'll be another 6 months, it'll be a full year. And honestly, I don't think it's going to happen in the next 6 months. I think it's going to be more than that. I think it's going to be probably another year at least before we can enact zoning. And I just think I think that there ought to be ways that we can move forward and not put all development in the town on hold for extended periods. So I'd like to see if there's a way to thread the needle here and be able to do some stuff within the next 3 months, and so that the solar project can go forward. That's where I'm at now. So for me, I don't feel ready to vote. If it were called to a vote tonight, I would be voting against. But I hope that we can take time to consult with our attorney, consult with the committees a little bit more, and see if there's a way to thread this needle.
John or Cal, would you like to speak? Or?
Yeah, I agree with some of Irene's points. I think in the big picture, I agree with most of what's been supported tonight. Makes sense to me, right? We need a thoughtful plan in terms of what we want this town to look like and be like. And without considering things like zoning, it's very unrealistic that we'll ever really get there. And so I recognize that, but I also remember, and I think it was our attorney who told us that the zoning process could take as much as 4 years, right? And that's not to say that it shouldn't be looked at, certainly. But as Irene said, I also hear voices of other people that are doing things that might be very congruent with our comprehensive plan, right? And so the question is, I think as Irene says, what is our latitude and leeway to try and sort of have the cake and the pie, right? I know Jonathan had said, could we do a 3-month? And the answer is, I don't know, quite honestly. I like the idea of trying to have a sort of a pressure release valve so that we can be thoughtful about this. I guess my first question is, off the top of my head, I don't remember the date that the current moratorium expires. Can someone refresh my thinking on that?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, there we go. Okay. Fantastic. Is there anything that would prohibit us from doing a 3-month moratorium? With the idea that we feel, based on the feedback we've just received tonight, that there are some things we want to investigate, that we want to consult with council on, would still allow the committees to do their work, would still allow us to really dig into the comprehensive plan, but give some breathing room to folks who are expressing projects that might be congruent. In other words, I'm asking, is it an all or nothing? I don't think it is, but I'd like to hear other thoughts on that.
Well, we can make the moratorium for any length of time we wish it to be. So.
I'll just note that would be a substantive change and we'd have to hold another public hearing. And
that would be fine. We could do that.
Yep.
And the other thing, just if I'm, Chad, if I'm understanding what you said correctly, we would need to do, in order for it to enable your solar project to go forward, what we would also need is and I could do this in consultation with the planning board and with Tim and the economic and land use committee, to see is it feasible to get solar siting law done in that time, and some of the other laws that have been mentioned that provide some level of control and protection over what we're doing while we continue to work on zoning for however long it takes. So I just wonder, what can we get done in 3 months? What's feasible? And my impression is that Chet would need to know for solid that he's got a viable path forward at the end of an additional 3-month moratorium.
Can I mention my concern that I think the town should be careful about articulating its process and procedures in relation to particular commercial projects.
Yeah, you're right.
Which the task force has been very careful not to do. And I think that any of our considerations need to be made in terms of the broader scope of things for many reasons, but also legal reasons. So I think we just need to be careful. I think that there's no question that probably all of us lean in favor of developing alternative energy projects in the town, but we also need to do it according to our reasonable time schedule. And it's whether that's 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, I think we need to make this decision based on the recommendations of the comprehensive plan, which we haven't voted on yet, which is also why we need to continue the moratorium now, as well as the recommendations of the task force.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tim. You're right. It's thin ice to tag any moratorium to a particular project. So I'll, just say in general that I'm concerned that zoning is going to take a while to enact, and I'm not in favor of putting any development in the town on hold for as long as it takes to enact zoning, because it could drag out for a really long time.
I might also add, Irene, just so that the public gathered here realizes that in the resolution for the moratorium, there are procedures for an appeal that are very, very well laid out, and that could provide a needy applicant an avenue for consideration within 180 days, which is why it's there. And it's been vetted, that's been vetted very carefully by our attorney to make sure that it's both valid and available.
For me, there's just coming off the budget season, there's a concern of taxable revenue or assets that will produce taxable income. Also, I feel that I'm being asked to vote for a 360-day moratorium, not a 180-day moratorium. So I would very much be in support of in my mind, a 270-day moratorium or additional 90 days. But I think zoning is going to take a long time, and I think we need to get, I don't know, it's short-sighted versus long-term, but I just know that we got to get through some short-term things here. And when I think of the far end of Old 76 Road, and boy, if any area in the town needs some economic development, it's sad to drive down through there. And I think the highest and best use for some of that land would be a solar farm. Barns are falling in, land's growed up, scrub apple trees. It's sad. And I'd hate to lose this project to, it's unfortunate that Diversified Solar couldn't count on the waiver process that is included in the moratorium, but I think that they feel uncertain enough about that they would not go forward unless something was, they could just be more sure of their position. I think the words Chet used were clear, understandable, present, and compliant. And I'm just afraid 360 days is going to become 540 days, is going to become 720 days.
Yeah, there certainly is a window of time within the moratorium for any applicant to make an appeal and have a resolution within a timely avenue, which is why it's built into the.
Okay.
So, I guess I'll just say my how I feel about this. I feel like you know, I just feel like we are at an incredibly momentous time, and the comprehensive plan has been really well constructed. It has examined, used data to show the growth patterns. Caroline's no longer a sleepy little town, it's a destination, and it's, I think, it's reasonable to feel that growth pressure here is going to increase substantially in the near future. It's one of the fastest growing towns in the state. It has been in the last few years. And the vision of the town has been clearly articulated across, you know, political lines. We all treasure the beauty of Caroline and the aesthetic diversity, the cultural diversity, and the friendliness of the town, and we want to keep it that way. And I think we recognize that our land use controls are extremely limited, and without zoning, we have no control over where anything goes. That's just an absolute. So I think that the task force is a good example of what can happen when people put their minds to something. And so under the bullwhip of Councilman Murray, they have accomplished an incredible amount in a very short time, and they're all still extremely happy and friends. So it's been a great experience, and I think, you know, I just think this is a time when we need to take a deep breath and do things right. And I think to do things right, we need to impose a moratorium. That's an authority that New York State gives us, specifically for doing this kind of work to protect the interests of the town. And so I understand the concerns of individual developers, but I think, you know, it just can't be true that these opportunities will never come again. And so I certainly, you know, I hear the fears of a protracted process for developing some kind of land use tools, but I don't think that's not, you know, I think we can do it rather swiftly. I do agree that if we do zoning, it probably will require a second 6 months. I don't know that though, and I think it's worth, you know, trying to see what we can do in an initial 6 months, and then move forward if we need to. So I just think we're at a point in time where we have a great opportunity to do this. The hard work's been done by the planning board over the last 6 years. The task force has carried that forward in the last few months significantly, and they've made strong recommendations to us that I feel we should support, and I hope we will. So
I don't know if this is fair or not, but I just wonder what would have happened to Boyceville Cottages if we'd had zoning in place before that was started. You know, it was a bit of a wetland, kind of hydric soils, and yet, you know, part of the fastest growth in the town, and I think it was pointed out in the one of the reports, was Boyceville Cottages is a lot of the reason for the huge growth because of one commercial project. And I don't think that sort of project is probably going to happen again. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it's kind of neat. I remember it at first glance, it seemed kind of, I don't know, nothing like that had been done in the town. But I think it was an excellent land use, and it brought a lot of, again, for me, a lot of tax base to the town, and a lot of good people here that I've met there that I'm glad I know. And I just can't help but wonder if, with all the forward-looking planning, if we would have permitted that. I don't know.
That's a really good point, Cal. But I think that if if we read the revised comprehensive plan, it both acknowledges the value of that development and acknowledges the role of condensed housing development.
Yeah.
So it fits very, very much within the.
Yeah.
Within
I mean, I
the
like the idea of that so much more than this urban sprawl, because too often what I'm seeing is a medium-sized ranch house planted in the middle of a 5-acre hayfield.
That's a good, yeah, and that is a strong, strong message, both in the comprehensive plan and in the task force recommendations, that
Yeah.
we should be doing things to, you know, encourage nodal development
Yep.
as much as possible. So.
I just wonder how we'd zone Buffalo Road.
Well, I mean, these are broad issues, and
yeah,
I mean, zoning doesn't have to be. I think what the task force has already learned is that zoning doesn't have to be that particular.
Okay.
We'll be talking about very, very broad zones across the town that also overlap and can be done relatively simply. And I've come to learn relatively quickly. We've been told by Tompkins County planners that we could accomplish something simple within a year.
Okay.
So it's not outside of the realm of possibility here.
It's not a jigsaw puzzle. It's just
Doesn't have to be. No.
It's more of a painting, a mural, rather than a. Okay.
Well, that's the job of the zoning commission to figure out what we want it to be, and so.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a way to keep this conversation going is perhaps for me to ask you, Irene, whether or not you don't agree that the appeals process would provide an avenue for the right kind of needy applicant to appeal for a particular project.
I think it, I mean, do I think it would? No. Am I an attorney? No. I don't think it would allow. It basically says that your project isn't gonna use land. It's kind of what it says.
Well,
When I look at the waiver, it talks about financial hardship, but then it also talks about things that say basically that it's not gonna fly in the face of any of the things that are identified in the, in the comprehensive plan. And
or what it comes down to is, hey, what about him over there? You approved him, why not me?
well, if a waiver were applied for, the town would have to, if it allowed the waiver through, would have to justify, and Cal, that would be the same no matter which project, whatever project came forward, that it would need to pass the screen of the waiver. But as I read the requirements of the waiver, there's not a lot of room in there to allow a project through, no matter what it is.
So now you can hear me. Maybe you want to think of what's your hurry to put a moratorium on. That's my only comment. You can mute me.
I think we're not. I think that we need to keep this discussion focused with the board, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's a board discussion.
Well,
So I'm hearing that some of the board members are, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, here's, so I just pulled up the language of the moratorium. And the first clause is a hardship clause. The petitioner has to show that, you know, there's some hardship substantially greater than a harm to the public and a harm to the public welfare, blah, blah, blah. The second clause is that the granting of the waiver will have no clear adverse effect on the goals or objectives being pursued or undertaken or outlined in this law, including but not limited to efforts to protect and preserve the essential character and important resources of the town, including avoiding potentially deleterious or irreversible impacts to residential life, open spaces, agricultural resources, and farming. It basically, you know, when you say that it's not going to have any adverse effect on any of the goals or objectives being pursued, and yet those objectives are broadly detailed in the comprehensive plan, but they're not specifically detailed in a zoning law that doesn't exist yet. So how can you say? I mean, there's just, to me, this is so broad that I don't know that any project could get through on this waiver.
well, the Part A introducing those 7 Roman numerals says that, you know, unless the town board shall specifically find and determine as set forth in its resolution granting such waiver in whole or part that, colon, each of
Right.
them. So there's
And that all of these criteria have to be met.
in whole or in part.
No, we asked Guy about that, and his answer was that they all had to be met. It's granting the waiver in whole or in part, not finding these elements in whole or in part. At least that's what I understood his answer to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't see where any project could get a waiver under these terms.
Well, the reason articulated by the state for a moratorium in relationship to the completion of a comprehensive plan to provide the town with a window of calm and certain planning to clearly articulate its goals and map out its possibilities and move forward without the pressure and definition of individual projects, which is why the state has the moratorium law, and which is the reason that as I worked with the task force, I became even more convinced of its necessity, so that we can work through a lot of these issues and think clearly about which tools will work the best and which we can implement in the short term as well. I mean, it would be conceivably possible that we could lift the moratorium early if we thought that we had accomplished our goals and could move forward based upon those articulations. But I think it would be an unfortunate lack of opportunity for the town, after having done so much planning, so much work, to pause to accommodate particular projects, regardless of their high merits, before we had the opportunity to evaluate or position ourselves for their placement. And in this case, it would even permit us the opportunity to move forward with reasonable consideration of solar site plan, which we haven't done yet.
Yeah, I know we haven't.
there'd be nothing to preclude us from shortening the moratorium if we came to that point.
I just don't want to see the solar site across the town border, and sorry.
Yeah,
I mean, I certainly agree with comments that, you know, there's going to be other funding opportunities that roll around. But, you know, we're in the spirit of the fact that we're not adopting this moratorium relative to any particular project. I'm just not comfortable putting all development in the town on hold until zoning is figured out.
Well, you're not putting all development in the town on hold. You're putting just small commercial and industrial development on hold.
Well,
Residential.
yeah, I understand that, Val.
Yeah, well, but just, you didn't say that.
Yeah, you're right, I didn't, but.
You're not putting agricultural development on hold. You're not putting municipal development on hold.
and that's exactly as Tim, you know, read earlier, that's exactly the point of a moratorium, to take a pause. So without regard to targeting anything in particular, or any particular project in particular, you know, so that we can advance the goals and the visions of the town.
I'm inclined to agree with Irene that the waivers are, to me, read very much like a, you know, almost a abandon all hope ye who enter here. But when we're doing a moratorium, I also understand sort of the point is not to be easy to work around the moratorium, right? The moratorium's in place for a reason so that we can be thoughtful about the process. I do not believe it's any realistic hope that we would have zoning worked out in 6 months, but I do believe there's realistic hope that some of the other parts of the proposed moratorium and things that we would need to work on and make progress on, I do believe that those are realistic things, and that we could make some progress on zoning, right? And it may be that we come to the end, if we were to do a 6-month period, we come to the end of it and realize we didn't get it all done, but we've got substantive things in place that support the vision for the new comprehensive plan, or congruent with where we'd like to see, and maybe become the launch point for that next level, which I think is a pretty fair chance would be zoning, right? And that may be good enough. Yeah.
It's an ongoing process, the whole thing. It's going to be, it's nothing static that, you know, we've got to, you know, I think that's a fault we had in the past. We had a 2006 comprehensive plan, and well, we've got a comprehensive plan in place. No, it should have, you know, if we could rewind, it should have kind of kept being kicked along a little more, but we learned as a town.
Yeah.
Because this world's moving fast.
That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess as I weigh all this out in my mind, I think I land on the place of supporting it with strong encouragement to get as many elements in place that start to get us closer to the vision that we want, and support the comprehensive plan in the way we want.
In 90 days.
I don't think that's feasible, but I think a 90-day check-in would be well in order, right? Because what I think wouldn't be a good outcome would be we get to the end of 180 days and we're like, guess what, right? And that was one of the concerns that was raised when we considered the original moratorium, that, you know, it can't be and it shouldn't be a process of, okay, 180 days, another 180 days, another 180 days. And I don't think we want that either.
No, we
right?
don't.
Right. And I think what I will say that's been quite heartening is the amount of progress that's happened during this moratorium. I mean, that is no small task.
Yeah, a lot of stuff got knocked off. Yes.
Yeah. And so, you know, there is a case to be made that there is some real momentum going on in the town. And I guess if I have to fall in one direction, I'd probably fall on the side of let's support the momentum.
And what does that mean in terms of the number of days of moratorium you want to see?
Well, I think we've got a unique circumstance, right? You know, so me, the person who likes to compromise and try and hear all sides of an issue and meet all needs would say 90 days. But I also recognize that our moratorium law expires tomorrow. And so and I also know the requirement of that we would have to have another public hearing. And so we create a gap, and that's not ideal. So I guess where I'm at is I will support the 180 days.
And I also support 180 days, but because I think it supports the recommendation of the comprehensive plan and the task force. I think it substantively supports what they're asking us to do.
I mean, I could easily see us checking in 90 days and seeing where we're at. And if we felt that the cards were in order, we could consider shortening the moratorium. We'd always could do that. But I think that it makes sense to be consistent with the current moratorium that we have and the likelihood that we'll need this kind of space to move forward. If we were able to mobilize the citizenry as well as we did in the fall, we can probably make an awful lot of progress, but that's not at all certain in January. So we'll just have to see.
So I would like to bring this forward for a vote. Are we ready for that?
Yep.
I am.
Yep.
Okay. So I will offer a motion to adopt the 180-day moratorium, providing for a temporary moratorium on land use development reviews and approvals and upon all commercial, retail, business, and industrial land development actions for a period of 180 days.
You need a second. So
Need a
I'll
second on
it.
that. Did you second it, John?
Yes.
Thank you. And this is typically where we would have discussion. So any further discussion before I call for a vote?
No.
Okay. So call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
And abstain. So. All right. The moratorium is adopted by a vote of 3-2. Thank you for the discussion. Appreciate all the thoughts and concerns.
I do just want to let people know that my no vote is not intended in any way of disrespect for the vision, the work, the love that you have for this town that I share with you. It's just that, you know, I wish that we could have come to a 90-day compromise and, you know, found a way to do it all. But I really do appreciate everything that you've been doing for the town. And yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Irene. I feel that way too.
Thanks, Cal. Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Board members, planning board members, task force members. All right. So now we have 3 people who've applied for the planning board. Some of whom have recently left other boards and are looking for something to do.
Methinks you must jest too much.
So I guess I'll call on Will Lawrence first to speak with us. So, John, can you unmute Will? You. Hi, Will. Can you hear me? Oops.
Hi. Yep, I can hear you.
Great. Thanks for putting yourself forward for the planning board and coming to speak with us tonight. And I guess I'll just open it up by, we know that you are engaged with promoting age-friendly community planning. And I guess I'll just ask you, you know, tell us a little about your interests and why you're interested in the planning board.
Can I make a suggestion that Will turn her video off because
Sure.
you don't really have the bandwidth for both. Hopefully, Will, you were breaking up quite a bit, even just saying hello to us. So hopefully this way you'll have enough bandwidth to talk with us without it being all weird.
Are you there, Will?
Sure. Yeah, I'm here.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So my interest in being on the planning board really comes from the time I've spent in town board meetings and understand how the town government works. And the more I've dug into it, the more I've become interested in being part of the process. In the meantime, of course, I have been working on all kinds of issues. Somehow, maybe because I'm retired, I got pulled into you know, the advisory board for County Office for the Aging, and a lot of the issues around that, and also New York State Senior, New York Statewide Senior Action Council, and lots of trips to Albany. So I got pulled into the age-friendly issues through that because it's a movement really that started with the World Health Organization, and New York State has put a lot of money and effort behind educating communities about the program. So I've been through lots of trainings on it now. So I have a better understanding of it than when I first approached the board. And to bring it into the planning process would make a difference for that. I think all the board members got Mildred Warner's letter of recommendation. or letter of support. That was actually unsolicited. I just casually mentioned to her that I was on the planning board, and what I forwarded to you was the response I got to that casual remark. But I bring that up because through working with the Tompkins County effort for renewing their age-friendly plan, they worked on identifying best practices for communities. And Mildred was part of that process, and I was part of the process. So that's what led to that letter. I also have spent a lot of time in the past year catching up on where the electric power industry is at with distributed generation, and with all the ways in which things are changing rapidly with regulatory issues at both the state and federal level, and the ways they interact. And there's a lot happening. I'm sure if Mr. Feldman was still on the call, he could appreciate that statement. There's a lot behind it, lots of orders. Things aren't as simple as they seem. It's not just a matter of, hey, let's build let's put a solar panel in that field. There's a whole layer of not just NYSERDA and state DPS rules that go there, but now there's interaction through the New York ISO too. So there's lots of cues to get into. It's a very long, involved process. Anyway, I think if you talk to Bill, it looks like he might have dropped off the call. I don't see him.
Yeah, I think so.
We're already talking, we're already talking about the provisions for the siting law. And I can tell you that it needs some work. And I can support what I'm saying with places around the country and state to support what I think are needed changes to the template he's looking at. So that's where I am. That's what my interests have been.
Okay, great. That sounds like you'll be able to dive right in with what they're doing.
So I just have a question, Will, that you understand that the planning board works with land use authority and that this isn't about the engineering dimensions, which I know you're very well versed in.
Yes, but I also have sat through the review board meetings that went on for during the cell tower siting, and I appreciate the difficult situation they were put in, not just by the FCC rulings that the lawyer, the lawyer, but also because of part not helpful. I think Ellen Harrison pointed that out. I agree with her.
I don't know if you're freezing up or what. Are you still there, Will? I'm not hearing Will.
What was,
Mark, I was just going to say that I think Will has been able to help us understand what a role on the planning board might be, and
Sure. Move
she's
on.
very, very active, and we're all very, very well with her, aware of her. So probably, given the communication difficulties, we can probably move on.
I think so. Yeah. So we'll move on. Will, thank you. So Michelle,
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Just tell us briefly about your interest in the planning board.
Well, I was just on that task force, and I guess it was all really interesting, and I enjoy doing research in some of these issues, and I guess I'll just leave it at that. You know, I really enjoyed working with everybody, and you know, anyway, I don't know what else to say. Do you have any questions? Or I'm not really qualified for, like, I don't have a background in it or anything, but but I do like to do research. So
yeah, great. Any questions from board members that want to follow up with Michelle?
Michelle, based on what you've learned over the past few months, can you imagine things that you would like to accomplish if you're on the planning board?
I don't know. I mean, well, I wish Bill was still on the call. I'm not 100% sure what issues the planning board is going to have to address in the next few months. So.
Solar site plan for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, so that would be really, I find that a really interesting issue. I mean, it seems very, I mean, I love seeing all those solar arrays, but then you have to just like wonder, you know, I think there should be a plan for them. So, but I think what I've heard about, yeah, I totally appreciate people that want to make money off their land in that way. It's, you know, it's a very it's just complicated. So if that's one of the issues, yeah, I would like to contribute to coming up with a plan for that.
Thanks.
May I jump in briefly to, if you want an outline of what we might be doing? I don't know if that's helpful, or I can just stay out of it too, but there's no one
Sure,
else.
that'd be great, Catherine.
So, you know, I guess to address your interests, I think the planning board is doing like everything that's in the same sort of wheelhouse of what the task force was doing with both you and Barb. And so I think any issue that involves strategic planning for the town, whether that's solar siting, other renewable or other energies, whether that's land use, whether that's, you know, impacts on natural resources, currently in the absence of zoning, the planning and review board are what we have. So as you know, we're trying to strengthen all that, but yeah, everything falls into kind of planning.
Yeah. So, well, I guess I would just say, I think maybe a strength I might have is I feel like I can see both sides often, or many sides of problems. And I'm willing to consider all sides. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than that. It's like, I think it's really often a very interesting philosophical question, and I'm happy to consider a lot of aspects of it, even though, you know, I have pretty strong political views, but I can set them aside.
As you have demonstrated.
Yeah. I don't know about that, but
Michelle, I find myself keep wondering if planning is a carrot or a stick.
A carrot or a stick? Well, I've been meaning to say this in our meetings. I really think we should make it more of a carrot. I feel like there's
You're
so
on
many.
in my book.
Okay. Cal and I are neighbors, just so everybody knows. But anyway, no, I feel like there's areas, but I don't think this, I'm not saying this comes under the purview of the planning board, but just there are other areas. It seems like if there were ways we could encourage good development by offering, I don't know, tax rebates or whatever, to look into those areas would be, I think, helpful.
Yep.
Rather than making it all like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, but just think of ways to encourage the right thing, I think would be helpful. But I don't know if that comes under planning, but I've been meaning to mention that at many of our meetings, so.
Cool. That
Thank
sounds great, Michelle. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So Barb, do you want to chime in here and tell us about your interest in the planning board?
Sure, thank you. As you all know, based on my earlier comments, I've served on the Land Use and Economic Development Task Force with Michelle, and enjoyed that experience. And it seems to me that in my conversations with Bill about what the planning board is going to be dealing with in its role of providing advice and guidance to the town board on planning goals and related policy that could be implemented to achieve those goals, that's certainly carrying through with items that are flowing out of the soon to be adopted, I hope, comprehensive plan and the recommendations of the task force are, those will be on the agenda of the planning board. So I'd like to participate in carrying those to the next step. My understanding from Bill, and as Catherine noted, that the planning board is likely to be involved not only in solar, but in more kind of strategic orientation of planning for renewable energy facility siting generally in the town of Caroline going forward. I'm very much in favor of renewable energy development, and I think that there is a time and a place and a way for that to be done in conjunction with the vision for the town of Caroline as expressed in the comprehensive plan. And so I'd like to be a part of those discussions. I understand from Bill that there may be efforts in examining how to set up town-granted conservation easements to encourage maintaining open space, which could be more of the carrot approach that Cal was mentioning. So, just all of these issues seem very much of interest to me. Professionally, my work and my research has been more at the state and national levels of environmental policy, and it wasn't. I was more involved in local, especially town or county level environmental issues earlier in my career, pre-children, and then children happen, and now children are away. And so I would like to get back into kind of complementing the state and national work that I do professionally with more local work that I do recreationally, let's say. So I would like to participate in future advice giving and guidance development for the consideration by the town board on these issues.
Great, wonderful, thank you. Any questions for Barb from board members?
We're just damn lucky that the people we got to volunteer for these committees.
Yeah,
Also,
absolutely.
I'll second that.
And that they're not so burnt out, they don't run the other way.
Yeah, I was going to say that they're not so sick of Tim that they didn't just leave.
Ouch.
That's awesome.
No,
I
it's really, it's great, you guys. I'm so pleased that this task force lit a fire under you for understanding the importance in the work from volunteers who care about the town and can help plan its future.
So this is wonderful. So I guess I'll proceed by explanation to say, we actually have 2 spaces on the planning board, and we have 3 applicants. So we did discuss it briefly as a board at the last meeting, and I believe we were all in agreement to increasing the capacity on the planning board, and I've discussed it with Bill Podolka as well. So
You're going to increase it by 4, right?
I think by It's now 5, so Bill said he thought 7 total would be a good ceiling, but you think 9 would be better?
I don't know. This is Supreme Court.
Oh, okay.
You want to pack the planning board, Cal?
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Cal. So, yeah, so
Will that require us to, it'll require us to pass another law, right, Mark? To revise
it will. It will. So we'll have to draft that, and we'll do it with language that, doesn't kneecap the planning board if it doesn't have 7 or 9 members, but we'll allow that. So, anyway, having said that, then I will offer a resolution to appoint Will, Michelle, and Barbara to the town's planning board.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Cal. And any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Big eye.
I have to ask this. Any opposed? Okay. Great.
Maybe the applicants would now be opposed.
Right. Gee, the board was a little too enthusiastic with that vote. I don't know.
We didn't give them a chance to.
Well, look, it's nice. It's nice to have an easy vote.
Right.
Every once in a while.
So thank you all. And Bill did let me know to let him know, because he's going to send you an email with, if you're welcome to attend tomorrow night's planning board meeting, which is at 5 p.m. And that should be on the town notices. And I can send you the invitation as well. And he's going to
I mean, we only have a Zoom tomorrow from 5 to 9, right? Thank you, Mark.
I thought it went to 11.
Oh, yeah. Shut up.
He is going to send you some advanced materials for the meeting so you can familiarize yourself with it. So
he is planning on stopping at 20 of 7 or 25 of 7 so that we can have dinner.
That's right, because we have another meeting, right? So yeah, good. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Okay. I'll move on to the supervisor's report.
Oh, shoot.
Let's see. Trying to see if I can share my screen. Is everybody seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is my supervisor's report. So there was a letter of concern about increased activity at the gravel pit from a resident on Valley Road.
Mark, you need to scroll up because we're not looking at the supervisor report part of it.
Oh, what do you see?
The agenda.
Actually, we see it where it says agenda. This may not be your supervisor report. This is business meeting agenda. So try just scrolling and see if it's just that you need to be on a different page.
Different page.
No, it's
Different
a
page.
whole
So
different.
oh,
there we
there.
go. Yeah, but you can try opening that. We'll see if it'll open here. You might have to stop sharing screen and then go share screen on that document.
That's unfortunate. Okay. It's okay. I'll do it just to see if I can do it. Okay, here we go. So
there we go.
Now you're seeing it, right? So there was a letter of concern about truck activity at the University Sand and Gravel pit. There's a new company that's running there, and so I did respond, and that activity, that the gravel pit is regulated by DEC mining permit. I know I talked to Superintendent Spencer, and he said he spoke to I believe it's Robinson at the gravel pit, and they agreed to work to keep the dust down on the road. received a thank you from the food pantry and TCAD for the town contributions. We got a notice from Hafele that basic cable will increase $2 a month as of the first of the year, and that local station fees will also increase. Jonathan Bates approached me about forming a Caroline Agriculture Committee, and he's now in communication with a group that he's pulled together to talk about, what they want the group to be, and so he'll be getting back to us about that in January probably, or in the next few months, as they decide kind of what the goals of the committee, what they wish them to be. We did receive the 2021 Association of Towns training announcement, and I forwarded that to you. And then the other day, we got a nice Safe Workplace Award from the Comp Alliance for our 2019 performance. And they gave us $1,344 refund for that. So that was nice. Last week, Bob and Cal and I met with the Big Flat supervisor, Ed Fairbrother, and their DPW guy. And we talked about highway procurement practices. And this followed up on our conversation with Laura Shawley about the same thing. So we're hoping to figure out better ways to the lease to purchase or installment purchase practice. So Bob and I are talking about that and working on that, and I'll have a little more about that later or with my fund balance report. And I met with our insurance guy for the 2021 renewals. Jesse and I sent the 2021 budget information to the county. I've been corresponding with Osamu about the hazard mitigation planning and submitted a couple projects for that, which is just part of the process for that. And then I've been looking at the fund balance situation so that I can present that to you, which I'm going to do now. See if I can navigate all this. Okay, now where am I? I thought I had a nice seamless way that I wouldn't have to start and stop sharing, but alas, it's
No, every time you go from one document to the next, you have to change.
That's a shame. So I pulled together some information. Some of this is from my tentative budget presentation. And so I just wanted to try to provide clarity about where we are in our fiscal situation. So as of my last calculations, our unexpended reserve funds at the end of the year will be about 16% of our budgeted expenditures. And, in early 2017, we were at 27% of budgeted expenditures. So, yes, our town uncommitted reserves, our savings or whatever, have gone down in the last few years. This is a figure that I presented with the tentative budget just to show you in the last few years we've made significant highway equipment purchases, and this is not news to anyone. So, but it's just to emphasize, in each of those years, here's what we budgeted for highway equipment, and then here's the surplus funds that we used each year when we do taxes. Like the last calculation we do is we plow surplus funds back into to reduce the levy. So you can see that when we budgeted really high for highway equipment, in order to stay under the tax cap, we had we had to apply a lot of our savings to do that. That makes complete sense, right? So, and the point of this is that, you know, that by that we have explicitly expended a fund balance in order to acquire highway equipment. And just to give a historical picture of, I just took AUDs and looked at, or budgets, and looked at how much fund balance we used to offset the levy year to year. And you can see it jumps around depending on what's going on that year and what the budget's doing. But, and you can see here are those 3 years where we've recently budgeted high. But the average over this 20-year period is about 173,000 a year. And so if you plot the fund balance used to reduce the levy against what we've budgeted for highway equipment, you can see there's a strong relationship. So, you know, it's not surprising, but it just shows that for every unit increase of budgeting for highway equipment in general, it also depends on what other budget lines are doing. So if you can reduce others, it'll offset that. But if you don't, you're going to have to increase the amount of town savings you use if you want to stay under the tax cap, and we have done that. So that's why we're seeing that strong relationship. So so here again, I've updated the fund balance history for the town over the past 10 or so years, and you can see it bops around. It's generally been, you know, pretty decent. And it was high in 2017, and then we've spin it down to here. But we are slightly above. You know, we passed a fund balance policy where we've sort of designated 15 to 20% of budgeted expenditures is where we want it to be to buffer us from unexpected events or needed capital purchases.
I thought it was 20%, not 15 or 20. I thought it was 20%.
Well, we set a minimum of 15.
Oh, did we? Okay, all right.
And a ceiling of 20. So the next thing I did was I did a 2022 budget, and I don't have everything I need to do that, but I just estimated the tax cap by multiplying this year's tax cap by, I increased it by 2%. So this doesn't include the growth factor that the state weaves into it, but looking at past tax cap increases, it's about correct. I gave 2% increase to all the personnel lines. I did not increase the contractual lines. I gave a 4% increase for property and health insurance. I budgeted $30,000 for the town hall reserve, $65,000 for the highway facilities reserve, and $130,000 budgeted for the highway equipment line. And again, you know, these are just numbers I put in this projection. And $130,000 is about what I calculated. Danby is in that range, and Enfield. Their capital plan specifies 130. So it's in the reasonable range, or I just used it for this projection. Doesn't mean that's what it is. I didn't budget anything for sales of highway equipment, so that's conservative. I didn't budget anything for New York State aid, that's conservative. And when I finished doing it, I used $84,000 of fund balance, surplus funds, to stay under the tax cap. So when I did all that, the result was that it built the total fund balance to about 20% of budgeted expenditures. And with the 2022 budget contributions, it builds the reserve accounts to these levels: $109,000 for the town hall reserve, $452,000 for highway facilities reserve, and $348,000 for the highway equipment reserve. These recommendations are from from these results and from our discussions with Danby and Big Flats and conversations that Bob and I have had. So, so I think, you know, we've addressed some key highway equipment needs. And so now we're well positioned to make a plan forward. And I think I don't have that plan tonight, but I think that's our challenge. And so we need to figure out what the pace will be and what kind of strategies we're going to use for particular kinds of highway equipment. And Bob's priority right now is for the snowplow trucks. So these are just things I jotted down, just general themes that create a priority list for highway equipment and re-examine utility and uses of those. That was something that Laura mentioned. And assess leasing and installment purchasing, which you're all familiar with now and we've been doing. So the pros of that, it enables acquisition sooner because we don't have to pay the full price. We get warranty coverage for the short term. And if we sell those at the end of their warranty period, we have a shorter rotation, lower maintenance costs, higher resale price. And with all of that, you can develop a more predictable budgeting process and know your fiscal terrain a little better. The con, of course, is there are fees and interest charges, but this seems to be a very effective strategy for other municipalities. So I'm pretty excited about it, but still more to be learned. And Bob is working on that. These are just things I wrote down that, you know, might apply to various degrees. Assess potential for procurement of used equipment is something I've wondered about. Examine sharing of equipment. I know that's something Big Flats has done. Consider, and they rent some of their big sporadically used equipment. I don't know if that would apply to us or not. And then this should be really, you know, like taking all these things into consideration. We need to develop a rotation cycle that minimizes our expenses. So, and this last slide is just to show a potential benefit of this whole thing. So this is our highway equipment repair costs over the last, that I showed you before, over the last 20 years. So if we do, one virtue of the installment purchase plan is that you're likely, almost certainly going to reduce your equipment repair costs. So that's my budget fund balance presentation, which I don't know if that changes the perspective on where we're at. To me, I think the key point to me is that, yes, our use of fund balance in the last few years has been high, and that's because we've had these large equipment budget lines. So now our task forward is to figure out how we can best manage our fiscal resources. Questions?
Could you email this to us?
I did today.
Oh, okay.
So you haven't had time to digest it, I'm sure. So.
Not really, no. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for doing that, Mark. It's really helpful just to see it laid out like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good little presentation.
It was a great presentation, and I really appreciate the work that went into it and the thinking.
Okay, thank you.
Helpful, very helpful and reassuring to see the prospective budget for next year.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, because I felt like after we passed the budget, I felt like a lot of people had indigestion and worry. So for me, this, I mean, I did this for myself too. And I think, you know, we can manage this quite well. And I will let you know that I've talked to 4 other towns that have been in this exact situation with an antiquated highway fleet. And they've all said that they got through it without going, you know, breaking the tax cap. So they managed it. And so I plan to keep talking with them and learning as much as I can. So great. Okay. I'll move on since the night's getting late.
We're just beginning.
You're used to this, right, Tim?
Yeah, the night is just settling in.
Okay. So now, Jesse, are you there? Do you have anything to report?
Yeah, I'll just mention real quick. Last month, I spoke to you guys about a teller style window for the clerk's office, and Inlet Glass came out and gave an estimate, and the total cost for them doing it with installation is about $750.
Great.
So I've went ahead and they're working on that, and hopefully I'll hear from them in the next week, and they're going to come install it.
And they do great work.
Yep.
Yeah, they do. They do. Great. I'm glad that worked out, Jesse.
Yeah. Good steer on that one, Irene. Thanks, Jesse. That's great.
Thanks.
Let's see. So I think Bobby's here. Bob, did you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I'll make mine pretty short. The night's kind of ending for me.
Yeah.
Got an early morning again tomorrow.
Aren't you supposed to be getting up about now?
In a couple hours.
A couple hours, yeah.
Couple quick things. I guess the biggest and exciting part of it, I'll do that one first. The new trucks are completed. I got a phone call today, and we should take delivery on them within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Sure you don't want to change your mind?
No, I'm good. It's been a long time coming. The second thing is, we had a meeting, Jeff Smith, myself, other highway superintendents, and basically, it entailed some potentially shared services, going forward with some COVID issues. And basically, we're all come to an agreement that whoever needs help is going to get help. And with that said, at some point, it may be brought up or have to be brought up in a newsletter or something, that the level of service may be affected here for a potential outbreak at a highway department in, Dryden, Lansing, any of the surrounding towns. If they get multiple personnel that are out, it's just going to come down to, everybody pitching in. We may take over, some roads for them until they're back on their feet. And that olive branch was extended to us as well. So we've been talking about it, but it was just kind of put, it was put all together in a meeting and made formal that if we need help, we'll get it. But it just comes down to the, it may affect some services here, as far as roads may get plowed a little bit later because we may not have the actual COVID outbreak, but we're going to be, we'll be dealing with it. So it may affect some services here, but
That's great news that you guys are working together like that.
And other than that, we have been, doing some highway building repairs on one of the outbuildings. And that's moving along great. All the guys have pitched in, using a little bit of their, outside expertise to get these jobs done. So that's moving right along, and hopefully will be completed in the next couple weeks as well.
Great.
And
Very
that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. That sounds great.
Good night.
Yeah.
Night.
Yeah. Drive safe, Bobby.
All right. Dan, are you there?
I am here. Hi.
Great. Hi.
I do not have anything urgent tonight, so considering it's so late, I think I'll just skip the report, and I will happy to answer any questions that people have.
Do you sleep at the county at the county courthouse?
I don't, but I come here for my meetings most of the time.
Oh man.
It's
Because
either that or
I always see it, there, because I see those beautiful arches for the trusses.
I mean, I think I've mentioned it before. I do not have good enough internet connection at home to Zoom.
Yeah.
So my choices are here at the legislature chambers or parking my car in the Danby Town Hall, outside the Danby Town Hall. This is a little more comfortable for long meetings. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good.
And you had quite an observation tonight.
It was a good meeting. I really enjoyed your meeting.
Hey, Dan, I know the last week, Jason on the county call said they're going to move to weekly calls now. So I really appreciate that. And I just really appreciate what Jason and Frank and everybody, Amy, everybody are doing each week. So.
Thank you. I've heard other good feedback about those calls, so I'm glad to hear more.
They've been great.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll get your longer report next time, I guess. Okay, Dan?
You got a deal.
Okay. Thanks. All right. So the next item on our agenda is the introduction of the flood damage prevention law. So you all have that on your plates now, and I coded it so that you can tell what language is the model document, what language is the optional language, and what language is language that was added by Guy. The one provision that I added was the critical facilities provision, which was the only one that both Dan Fuller at the DEC and Guy recommended that we include. And it's also the one that I had independently chosen. So anyway, I'm introducing that tonight, and I will, I suppose it will make sense. I'll probably schedule a public hearing for that. I would propose that we schedule a public hearing for that at the January business meeting and get that into effect. So since I'm bringing that up, I will offer a resolution to schedule the public hearing. Are you comfortable with me scheduling the public hearing on this law at this point?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll offer a resolution to schedule that public hearing for our business meeting on January 13th at 7 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think Irene got that one.
Yep.
Yeah, you were the second, Cal.
Third. So any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, guys. So I'll offer a resolution to approve the December budget transfers that are on the agenda. $300 from a 1990.4 contingency to a 1620.1 maintenance, $16,000 from DA 5130.1 machinery personnel services to DA 5110.1 general repairs personnel services, $300 from DA 5130.1 machinery personnel services to DA 5110.1 general repairs personnel services, and $4,442 from A 1910.8 retirement to DA 1910.8 retirement, and $5,440 from A 1910.8 retirement to DA 19.8 retirement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. Any questions about those transfers? Hearing none.
No.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. I will offer a resolution to approve the payment of the town bills in the amounts of $20,982.84 for the general fund, $50,738.44 for the highway fund, and $217.78 for the streetlight fund.
Second.
Second by Cal. Cal got that one.
Yeah.
Any concerns or complaints? And thanks to Irene for catching a missing invoice on one of the highway bills. So that was good.
And the $1,000 thing too.
Yeah, that was important too. So thank you for that.
Now, what's the story behind the duck?
One of my dog's favorite toys
Okay.
is a rubber duck. It's part of the reason I adopted her. Because how could you not adopt a dog that likes to play with a rubber duck?
Yeah.
Duck.
So I'll call for a vote on the payment of bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Great. Thank you. Offer a resolution to approve the December 1st minutes.
I'll second that too.
Y'all's getting them all. Any comments or revisions or additions? Nothing? Okay,
No.
sounds good. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Jesse. Offer resolution authorizing me to sign the next year's agreement with our town attorney. Who wants this one?
Second.
Seconded by Tim. And Guy said his rates next year will be the same
Wow.
as this year, but they will probably increase in 2022. So,
Well, we better start looking then for someone.
or maybe we should just ask him all the questions this year. And
There you go.
so, no further comments. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. And now the last one, I was going to propose that we set the year-end bill paying. So
Yeah.
I noticed that December 28th is a Monday, which is okay with me, but I'm not committed to any day. What do folks think? And we also do this sometimes in the mornings, I think. So if you want to do that, that's fine.
I'm pretty flexible.
Yeah, whatever works for everybody else.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay.
I vote for morning for change, if it's good
Yeah.
with everybody else.
Oh, that we could bring donuts.
Donuts
Meet
by
in person.
Yeah, no.
I know, but I just,
I like the sentiment, but no.
So 9 o'clock?
Would 9 o'clock on the 28th, Monday the 28th, would that work?
Sure.
sure.
Okay. Hey, let's do that. So I'll
I
offer resolution.
guess I'd better get up.
Yeah. You can attend in your pajamas.
Mark, when I was chatting with Bobby today, you know, I know you guys are still working out some of the planning and details on how to structure the highway spending plan going forward, and, you know, purchases and whatnot. But we mentioned possibly using this year-end meeting to also review whatever ideas have been cooked up at that point to get feedback.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I don't know if you and he will be ready at that point, but it was an idea. He said, you know, he kind of wanted to at least get some feedback on it before the end of the year, you know, so that we could go into the year knowing what the plan is. So,
I think that would be great because it'll only take us about 5 minutes to pay the bills. So that would be a good way to we could devote the meeting to that. So
yeah, I mean, it'll obviously be contingent on weather and whether he's, you know, out plowing or what, but
right.
But anyhow,
if he's not ready by, or if we're not ready by then, we'll do it. We'll do it at the organizational or a January.
Or, you know, or as soon as you can within, you know, within January. But
yeah.
But it was just, I just wanted to let you know that we had discussed it, and so everybody could be prepared that might happen.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow through with this. I don't think I followed through with the formality of this resolution. So I'll offer resolution to hold the year-end bill paying meeting on December 28th at 9 a.m.
Second.
Irene got it. Any further discussion or second thoughts? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Very agreeable group. That's great. I have no further items on tonight's agenda. Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, just a quick, you know, committee update on broadband. I think you guys are maybe aware that Lee Hafley had applied for an FCC grant. There were a few blocks that were identified within Caroline, and he indicated that he thinks that one block has at least gone into the next round of bids with Clarity Connect's new, some division that's connected with Clarity Connect anyhow. And that's an area that's towards Dryden. I'd have to go back and review the blocks. But the other I just was so sort of amused by, I think I sent you the article, is that it actually got awarded to Elon Musk for his SpaceX program and some low-flying satellites that he wants to put 300,000 of and create internet for everybody.
So he ties us up on his dream.
What?
He ties us up on his dream.
Yeah, and
haven't seen that before.
Almost $1 billion in federal funding. I mean, it's not just for us, it's for any number of areas, but so I'm not holding my breath, not looking up at the sky at night to figure out when it's going to happen, but just wanted to give the update.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Well, who knows? I'd be interested in getting an update from Nick Helmholt on the, you know, not now, but I mean,
who is
going,
Nick Helmholt?
Well, I think with the county, he's going to be, he's involved. He's the point person for the thing that Anna Kellis and Katie.
Oh, yeah. Well, I presume that'll start moving next year. I don't know if there's anything happening with it now.
Yeah,
it's budgeted for next year. So
great. All right. Anything else, folks? All right. So I will call for adjournment of the meeting, and thanks everybody for your hard work and attention. So
yeah.
Public hearing tomorrow night.
Public hearing is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. That's right.
Yeah.
So we'll see you then. So.
And so it's a public hearing, is it also a vote or just a public hearing on the
It's just listed as, I didn't list an agenda with a vote. So.
Okay.
Can we do the vote at the late December meeting when we're doing the final bills?
I think that's possible. I mean, yeah, so we'll see what we hear tomorrow night.
Here, depending upon if it is ready, we could do it.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. I mean,
Otherwise, January.
maybe it's kind of silly, but I would kind of like to adopt it in 2020 if possible, just so it had a 2020 number on it.
I would too.
But yeah,
See what we hear.
yeah, we'll see what we hear.
You mean the symbolism of the year? It's 2020?
Yeah, I don't know. There's really no good reason. So just to hang on to a year that's a little,
It's
unless-
done. It's done if we get it.
That's right.
It'd be nice for the planning board to wrap it up this year if we could.
Yeah.
Nice
It-
gesture.
It would. And we could always call a special meeting just to address that. And I think that would be okay. I mean, I'd be willing to if you all were. It might even be a kind of appropriate.
I guess we can just see tomorrow night after the hearing, right?
Yeah.
Great. All right, everybody. We good now?
We're
Yeah.
good.
Yep. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. See you tomorrow.
Good night. Good
Night.
luck.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.